All right, let's dive in. Welcome to our deep dive, all about vocabulary. I know you're here because you're all about boosting that word power. Maybe you're prepping for a big exam, like the PTE or the GRE, or hey, maybe you just love words. Either way, this one's for you.
It's really cool, right? I mean, we often think of vocabulary as just memorizing definitions.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that.
It really is. It's like having this incredible toolbox for communication.
Yeah.
But where do we even begin? Well, we found this amazing podcast. It was all about mastering vocabulary. And let me tell you, it totally changed how I think about learning words.
It really emphasizes how vocabulary, it goes way beyond just recognizing words, right?
Yes.
It's about skillfully using them,
Uh.
understanding all those subtle little shades of meaning, and then really using them, to express yourself.
It's like you're not just learning words, you're learning how to think better. And
Yeah.
you know what? They call this the context principle in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that words are best understood in relation to other words.
Makes sense.
It's a total game changer. Think about it. Learning a word just by itself, isolated, versus actually seeing it in a sentence, in a story, like a real life scenario. Huge difference.
Yeah.
It's the difference between just knowing the definition and really understanding it.
Totally. So to really show this, they use the word ephemeral in the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, the first time I saw this word, I was like, whoa, that's a mouthful. But then they put it in the context of social media trends, and it all clicked.
Yeah.
They said something like, social media trends are increasingly ephemeral, fading away as quickly as they appear.
Perfect example.
Right.
And suddenly the meaning is so clear.
So clear.
Plus, ephemeral is a word you'll probably see on all those standardized tests, the ones you mentioned.
Oh, for sure. It's a test taker favorite. So listener, I'm throwing this out to you. Can you come up with your own sentence using ephemeral? See if you can make that word stick. But the podcast, they don't stop there, They give you this whole toolbox of strategies for building your vocabulary.
Right. 10 of them, to be exact.
And the best part is they really emphasize finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Because not everyone learns the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about mixing and matching, to find your own approach.
Totally. So let's look at a few of these strategies, but instead of just, listing them, let's pick some that might be especially helpful for someone getting ready for the PTE or the GRE.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
How about we start with reading widely?
Perfect.
This one is all about immersing yourself in language from a variety of sources, not just textbooks.
Right.
Think novels, newspapers, magazines, even blogs or online forums, things that interest you.
Yeah, the more you read, the richer your vocabulary will be.
Totally.
You'll see words used in all these different situations.
Yeah.
And that's when the real learning happens.
You're training your brain to pick up on all those subtle nuances and shades of meaning.
Exactly. So someone getting ready for the GRE, they might really benefit from reading articles in The Economist or The Atlantic. Not only will they see that advanced vocabulary, sophisticated writing, but it'll also help them get comfortable with all those complex sentences, the kind they'll see on the test.
Oh, that's such a good point. It's not just about the words themselves. It's about absorbing that style of language, the kind used in academic and professional settings.
Exactly.
Okay, so another strategy I think is super powerful, especially for test prep, is flashcards.
Ooh, yeah.
But there's a trick to using them effectively.
I have to admit, I used to think flashcards were so old school. But when I started using them strategically, it was a game changer.
It's all about active recall and something called spaced repetition.
Okay, so for anyone who might not know, spaced repetition is basically, it's a fancy way of saying you review stuff at longer and longer intervals.
So you might see a word today, review it again tomorrow, then a few days later, then a week later, and so on. This helps move information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory.
Yeah, it uses how our brains actually learn and remember information. And what's great is a lot of those flashcard apps, they have these built-in algorithms for spaced repetition. So they do all the scheduling for you.
That's so helpful, especially for busy people, right, who don't have time to make their own study plan. But how do you make sure you're really engaging with the words on those flashcards and not just, mindlessly flipping through them?
Right. That's where the active recall comes in. Don't just look at the word and definition and think, oh, yeah, I know that. Cover up the definition. Try to remember it. Use it in a sentence. Maybe even think of a synonym or antonym. The more you do with the word, the stronger those connections in your brain
It's
become.
making them stick, right?
Exactly. And for tests like the PTE and GRE, it's not enough to just recognize a word. You have to be able to actually use it accurately and appropriately. In your speaking and writing,
That's so true.
it's really important.
Okay, so we've talked about reading widely. We've talked about using flashcards strategically. What other strategies did the podcast recommend?
Well, they also talked about the importance of word roots.
Mm.
It's like unlocking the secret code to language.
Ooh, I love that one. Tell me more.
So it's all about understanding the building blocks of words. You know, those Latin and Greek roots, prefixes and suffixes. Once you get those, you can often figure out what a word means just by looking at the parts.
It's like having a superpower. You see a word you've never seen before, and instead of freaking out, you can like break it down. Think, okay, pre means before and dict means to say. So predict must mean to say beforehand.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, this strategy not only helps you learn more words, it also helps you understand how words relate to each other.
It's like seeing how everything is connected. You start to understand how words have like changed
Yeah,
and borrowed from each other across different languages and time.
it's really fascinating. Now let's switch gears for a sec and talk about a strategy that might be good for people who like to learn more creatively. Mental associations.
Oh, yeah. This one is all about making learning fun and memorable, right?
Absolutely. The idea is to connect new words to vivid images, stories, your own experiences, songs, you name it. Anything that helps you remember it. The crazier or funnier, the better.
I remember when I was trying to learn the word loquacious, which means like
Yeah.
talkative, I pictured this cartoon parrot sitting on someone's shoulder, just chattering away. That image totally helped me remember the meaning.
That's a great example. And someone studying for the PTE or GRE, they could use this to remember tough vocab words
Yeah.
that are related to specific subjects. Imagine trying to learn the word ubiquitous. It means found everywhere. You could picture textbooks scattered all over your house, even like overflowing from the bathtub.
That's hilarious. Okay, so we've talked about reading, flashcards, word roots, and mental associations. What other strategies were in the podcast?
Well, they also talked about the importance of active usage. It's not enough to just like passively learn words. You have to get out there and use them in your speaking and writing. Make them part of how you communicate.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Exactly. And think about it. If you're preparing for an exam like the PTE, which has a speaking part, actively using those words in your daily life can really help.
It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't just read about running, you'd actually get out there and practice, right?
Exactly.
The more you use those words, the more natural they'll become. Now, this next strategy might sound kind of passive, but it's actually a great way to learn without even realizing it. Academic lectures and podcasts.
Those are great resources for learning new words while you're doing other things or just relaxing. TED Talks, for example, are full of great vocabulary.
And podcasts, there's something for everyone, you know. Whether you're into science, history, what's going on in the world, even pop culture. You can find a podcast that both entertains you and teaches you new words.
And you can listen while you're commuting, exercising, doing chores. It's learning on the go. Now, we're almost done with the list, but I want to mention a couple more strategies that are fun and effective. Word games and a vocabulary journal.
Okay, word games. Who doesn't love a good crossword or Scrabble game?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're not just fun, they're also great for expanding your vocabulary and improving your spelling. They make you think about words in different ways. Consider their definitions, synonyms, even their letter combinations.
It's like secret learning. And what about the vocabulary journal? Is that like a diary for words?
You could say that. It's a special place where you write down new words you find, their definitions, example sentences, maybe even some thoughts on how you might use them. It's a way to actively engage with words and make them your own.
Like making your own dictionary. And last but not least, we can't forget about consistent review.
This goes back to that idea of spaced repetition we were talking about before. It's about going back to those words regularly to make sure they stay in your long-term memory.
It's like, building a house. You wouldn't just lay the foundation and then never check on it, right?
Right.
You need to make sure everything is good, reinforce those walls.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to do that with vocabulary is to test yourself. Don't just assume you know a word because you saw it once on a flashcard.
Right.
Quiz yourself. Try using it in different situations. You could even try explaining it to someone else.
Oh, that's interesting. teaching someone else is one of the best ways to, like, really understand something yourself.
It is.
It makes you think about all the little details and how to explain it clearly.
Exactly. Now, remember that bonus challenge we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Instead of picking just any 5 new words to learn, we challenged you to choose words that are related to your interests or your field of study.
I love that.
Have you thought about it?
I'm so curious to know what words our listeners have chosen. I bet there are some really cool ones out there. Words that most people have never even heard of,
Absolutely.
that are specific to certain jobs or hobbies.
It's a great way to make learning more, like, personal
Yeah.
and engaging. When you're passionate about something, you're more motivated to learn the language that goes with it.
So true. So as we wrap up this deep dive into vocabulary mastery, I want to leave you with a sense of, like, excitement and possibility. Building your vocabulary is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's an ongoing process of discovery and growth.
And it's a journey worth taking. The more words you know,
Yeah.
the better you can communicate,
Yeah.
the better you can understand the world, and the better you can express yourself.
We're so glad you joined us on this vocabulary adventure. And we can't wait to see you out there using your new word power. It's like, building a house. You wouldn't just lay the foundation and then, like, never check on it, right?
Right.
I need to, like, make sure everything is good, reinforce those walls.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to do that with vocabulary is to test yourself. Don't just assume you know a word because you saw it once on a flashcard.
Right.
Quiz yourself. Try using it in different situations. You could even try explaining it to someone else.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Like, teaching someone else is one of the best ways to, like, really understand something yourself.
It is.
It makes you think about all the little details
Yeah.
and how to explain it clearly.
Exactly. Now, remember that bonus challenge we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Instead of picking just any 5 new words to learn, we challenged you to choose words that are related to your interests or your field of study.
I love that.
Have you thought about it?
I'm so curious to know what words our listeners have chosen. I bet there are some really cool ones out there. Words that most people have never even heard of.
Absolutely.
That are specific to certain jobs or hobbies.
It's a great way to make learning more, like, personal
Yeah.
and engaging. When you're passionate about something,
Yeah.
you're more motivated to learn the language that goes with it.
So true. So as we wrap up this deep dive into vocabulary mastery, I want to leave you with a sense of, like, excitement and possibility. Building your vocabulary is a journey, not a destination. It's an ongoing process of discovery and growth.
And it's a journey worth taking. The more words you know, the better you can communicate, the better you can understand the world, and the better you can express yourself.
We're so glad you joined us on this vocabulary adventure, and we can't wait to see you out there using your new word power.